Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all of the witnesses for being here. I want to visit with you, Ms. Mansky, but before I do, I just want to clear one thing up. Professor Bridges, you said several times, you've used a phrase, I want to make sure I understand what you mean by it. You've referred to people with a capacity for pregnancy. Would that be women?
Many women, cis women, have the capacity for pregnancy. Many cis women do not have the capacity for pregnancy. There are also trans men who are capable of pregnancy, as well as non-binary people who are capable of pregnancy.
So this isn't really a women's rights issue.
We can recognize that this impacts women while also recognizing that it impacts other groups. Those things are not mutually exclusive, Senator Hawley.
Oh, so your view is that the core of this right then is about what?
So I want to recognize that your line of questioning is transphobic, and it opens up trans people to violence by not recognizing that.
Wow, you're saying that I'm opening up people to violence by asking whether or not women are the folks who can have pregnancies?
So I want to note that 1 out of 5 transgender persons have attempted suicide. So I think it's important
because of my line of questioning? So we can't talk about it?
Because denying that trans people exist and pretending not to know that they exist
I'm denying that trans people exist by asking you if you're talking about women having pregnancies?
Do you believe that men can get pregnant?
No, I don't think women can get
So
pregnant.
you're denying that trans people exist?
And that leads to violence? Is this how you run your classroom? Are students allowed to question you?
Absolutely.
Or are they also treated like this, where they're told that they're opening up people to violence?
We have a good time in my class. You should join.
Oh, I bet.
You might learn a lot.
Wow, I would learn a lot. I've learned a lot just in this exchange.
Absolutely.
Extraordinary.
Yep.
Ms. Matsky, let me ask you something. So you provide health care to women free of charge, right? Is that right?
Absolutely.
You've done this for many years.
Yep.
You have licensed medical professionals at your pregnancy care centers. Is that right?
That is correct.
What are some of the resources that you provide for women who come to you in a time of need? So, just give us you talked about it in your written testimony, but just give us a sense of it.
So we have 3 OBGYN doctors, 5 registered nurses, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, phlebotomists, medical assistants, and we provide prenatal care, OBGYN care. We provide pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, well woman visits, breast exams. We provide a wide range of medical services, yes.
So what do you think about the DC politicians now saying that your clinic and the other 3,000 pregnancy care centers around this country are fake medical clinics? For instance, Senator Warren has said, it's now more important than ever to crack down on so-called crisis pregnancy centers that mislead and deceive patients. Senator Menendez, crisis pregnancy centers jeopardize women's health and well-being, all while elevating unproven theories about birth control. Senator Warner wrote to Google asking them to censor search results for care centers like yours, saying, directing women to fake clinics that traffic in misinformation is dangerous to women's health and undermines the integrity of Google's search results. Do you run a fake clinic? I mean, is that what's happening here? You don't provide actual medical care to actual women?
We absolutely do not run a fake clinic, and we have a full medical staff. Like I said, many of our medical professionals have experienced abortion for themselves, including our OBGYN doctor who used to perform abortions. So our entire medical staff is there for women, whether they choose abortion and walk out the door or whether they choose life for their baby, and we support them for years after that.
Do you think there ought to be an ideological test to be able to get medical care in this country? I mean, should we say to women, well, you have to agree with the DC Democrats' ideology, otherwise you can't go get medical care? Or maybe for you and the physicians who work at your pregnancy care center or the thousands of others across the country, should we impose an ideological test on them and say that, well, you have to agree with the DC Democrats' position on abortion or you can't provide medical care to women? Should we do that in this country?
Absolutely not.
I just want to ask in my few remaining seconds here, Ms. Harley, the Dobbs decision, as I understand it, I've read it now a number of times, it gives to voters the decision as to what laws should be pertaining to life and pertaining to abortion in all 50 states and other jurisdictions around the country. I'm just curious, do you know what percentage of voters in this country support the D.C. Democrats' position that they want to impose on the entire country, a one-size-fits-all rule they want to impose from the top down? Do you know what percentage of voters support their position, which is also, by the way, the same position taken by North Korea and China, other notable violators of human rights? Do you know what percentage it is?
I know that nearly 90% of Americans oppose abortion in the third trimester. The number that would support abortion up to the moment of birth has to be minuscule. It's a horrific policy.
Yeah, I mean, based on the most recent Harvard poll that was just released just a few days ago, it's less than 10% of voters say that they would support abortion into the final month of pregnancy, and yet that is the law that the D.C. politicians want to impose on every voter in America, to take this away from the people, take it away from my state, take it away from all the other states and the voters in the states, but impose this law uniformly that is not supported by 90% of the American people. Talk about anti-democratic. At the same time, they want to shut down 3,000 pregnancy care centers all around this country. That's radical. Thank you for being here.
Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your participation here today. As I believe you're all aware, this last Friday, President Biden signed a crucial executive order seeking to protect access to reproductive health care nationwide. And while I appreciate the President's efforts and the importance that his administration has placed on this issue, as we've discussed here at the hearing today, people of color, economically disadvantaged families, immigrants, and members of tribal communities have faced significant barriers to receiving adequate health care even before Roe was overturned. And those barriers will only further increase now. Now, in a country where the Black maternal mortality rate is triple that of white women, we should not be forcing anyone to carry pregnancies to term that they wish to terminate for health or other reasons, period. If we are serious about protecting lives in America, we should be ensuring that mothers across the country have every medical resource available. Anything less is simply unacceptable. My first question is for Professor Bridges, since you're from my home state of California. In your written testimony, you mentioned how the harshest effects of Dobbs will fall on Black people, Black women, Black families. Can you describe how this decision will impact the maternal mortality rate for Black women?
Absolutely. So as you've already noted, Black people with the capacity for pregnancy have a maternal mortality rate that is 3 to 4 times the rate of their white counterparts. I also think it's important to mention maternal morbidity. Severe maternal morbidity, our rates are twice that of our white counterparts, meaning that we have to undergo a life-saving intervention like mechanical ventilation, like a hysterectomy, in order to keep our lives during pregnancy, childbirth, or the postpartum period. So removing abortion access, removing the ability to safely terminate a pregnancy compels birth, which is simply more dangerous for Black people. I want to just mention that this is not inevitable. Black people don't have a gene that causes us just to die. These are social causes of these disparities of maternal mortality and morbidity, meaning that we as a society have not invested the resources that can make pregnancy, childbirth, and the postpartum period safe for Black people.
Thank you. And a question for Lieutenant Governor Stratton. Now, Respect that Illinois has taken steps to ensure that abortion remains legal for all, regardless of their background. Can you elaborate a little bit on how the elimination of abortion restrictions is essential in achieving reproductive as well as economic and racial justice?
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator, for that question. First and foremost, in addition to the conversations that we have been having about maternal mortality and the disproportionate impact on Black women in particular, I want to talk about some of the other long-lasting restrictions that we will see from the long-lasting impacts of the restrictions or bans to abortion. This includes an increased risk of intimate partner violence. We know that for pregnant people, intimate partner violence, and in fact, it's one of the leading causes of homicide. Homicide is one of the leading causes of death for those, for pregnant women. We know that it will be increased health problems regardless of not just maternal mortality, but also other health issues that can exist far beyond that point of giving birth, as well as the financial and economic risks, the strain, increased evictions, increased poverty, living in long-term poverty, being in debt. Listen, I am a mother to 4 daughters, and I can tell you, for anybody who is a parent, raising a child is expensive. So to talk about forcing someone to become a parent and give birth and to carry out a pregnancy to term when that is not what that person wants. That has been stated before by Professor Bridges, is a form of violence. So people should be able to choose what's best for themselves. Politicians are not healthcare professionals. And we should be able to have that bodily autonomy to decide not just what's best for our bodies, but what's best for our futures. And maybe it's not the right time to start a family. We should be able to decide that for ourselves, as it has been for close to the last 50 years.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I know my time is limited. I'll truncate my final question if that's okay. Just to ask one final question, recognizing that in the majority opinion, Justice Alito wrote that Americans need not worry about the broader implications of the right-wing majority's decision to overturn Roe. He said it's limited to this. Yet, in his concurrence to Justice Alito's opinion, Justice Thomas makes it explicitly clear that those other rights are not actually secure, and has invited the Supreme Court to take up cases to revisit other areas of what we had believed to be settled law. Professor Bridges, does the reasoning in Justice Alito's opinion striking down Roe is it possible or likely it could be applied to other areas of settled law that could go backwards on access to contraception, rights as it pertains to marriage, intimate relations, and other fundamental rights?
Absolutely. The court's protestations that it is not at all touching those cases.
Về thôn em duyên dáng bên ven sông con thuyền xuôi mãi, nhịp cầu băng qua men lối đi quanh con ngõ hoa nối dài. Nhà em cuối xóm ghép đôi mái tranh nâu trắng cài trước sau, có tầm mến thương dâu, có trầu vấn vương cao và đào tơ thơm ngát ngát hương trinh ban đầu. Đường về thôn anh con sáo ru êm trên đồng xanh lúa, nhịp cầu băng qua đưa lối dân rêu xưa thăm hoa bốn mùa. Nhà anh mãi là tháng năm vẫn chưa nghe duyên tròn ước mơ, có dàn mướp xanh lơ, có hồ cá nên thơ, mà lòng quê vẫn hát bao câu mong chờ. Hội mùa lên tiếng ca góp tay ta cần lao, ôi hai thôn giao đầu nhịp cầu che bước chung êm vui dương bao. Tình ta lên bên rồi còn chỉ ngăn cách lòng, mà chưa trao giấc mơ xuân cùng nhau. Trời dâng lên trăng màu, bà con đang mong cầu rằng đôi ta sớm nên duyên ban đầu. Đường về hai thôn mai mốt đôi uyên ương qua cầu soi bóng, nhủ thầm sông ơi gương nước chưa phôi phai ta còn vui hoài. Trời quê bát ngát sẽ trông thấy tương lai qua tình lứa đôi, lúa đồng mãi xanh tươi mướp cà thắm nơi nơi, và vành môi trai gái hát câu ca yêu đời. trao giấc